Hello, people. Today I want to talk about qualified immunity. Um, Most people, even the people that are behind it, abolishing it, this, that, and the other thing, they haven't thought it all the way through. The vast majority of people don't even seem to know what it exactly is. So let's clarify a few things. Qualified immunity is only applicable in civil court. So qualified immunity has nothing to do with holding police officers or judges or probation officers or politicians or any public servant. It has nothing to do with holding them criminally accountable for their actions. Nothing. It only applies under Title 42. Okay, Title 42 U.S. codes are all civil codes. So let's get that straight. Now, two things happen. Okay, New Mexico, Colorado, and I think one other place have abolished qualified immunity. And this is what happens. A, anybody and everybody that gets arrested is going to sue the cops. That's what qualified immunity was put in place for, was to stop anybody and everybody from getting to tie up the court system and the fucking police and everything else in constant investigations and court cases over trivial bullshit. Okay? That's what it's there for. Now, the way qualified immunity is set up is that an officer needs to knowingly violate your rights. And that comes down to two things: precedent and the what's called the reasonable officer standard. Okay? That rule of thumb, there's about a 3-year period between the time case law becomes case law and the time all cops should know about it. And that's going to vary giving the cops bailiwick, his training, his department, his area, whether he's a sheriff or a state or okay. What I'm trying to say is, and the court systems, of course, interpret uh, known law differently. That phrase, they interpret it differently. So a guy who got sued successfully for beating up a handcuffed suspect who was laying on the ground doesn't necessarily mean that an officer should know he can't beat the shit out of a handcuffed subject sitting in the car. These little gray areas that they keep their qualified immunity and don't have to pay for it. Now, abolish qualified immunity, what happens? One, insurance companies make a shit ton of money because every cop's going to have to carry the same level of liability insurance or higher than a doctor does, which means we're going to be paying each and every one of our law enforcement officers 6 figures. Two, the city that hired them is no longer responsible for anything other than providing federally sanctioned training to the officers, the standards. That's all they're responsible for. As long as their training doesn't violate the law or the Constitution, then anything their officers do in the course of their duties, they have no responsibility for it. They can't be, unless it's a failure in their training or policies that is unconstitutional or unlawful. You can't hold your local city responsible for hiring thugs. You just have to sue the thugs, and then an insurance company pays it. We all know how that circle works. We're going to subsidize that. We're going to pay for that. And the city never has to admit wrongdoing, never has to pay for its wrongdoing. Okay? So fix the qualified immunity and how it's used. Okay? Forbid municipalities from settling suits out of court. When they do wrong, they cannot offer money to get out of admitting they did wrong. Because that's how it works. They put so much pressure on you to try to sue under Title 42 that by the time you get to the end of the case, you're losing money. And it's been a torturous 10 or 15 years or 12 years or 6 years or however long you have to fight this case, where law enforcement is targeting you, the justice system is targeting you, the system is rigged so that you don't win these suits. Okay? So the qualified immunity system needs to be fixed. This is true. But the real problem with holding police accountable is that Title 18 is almost never, ever used. You can go on YouTube right now, and if you watched 12 hours of video a day, it would take you 10 years to watch all the videos of cops breaking the law who were never charged with a single crime. Obviously, blatantly breaking the law. From simple traffic laws to assault to murder. Title 18 is the criminal code, the United States Code. And police officers break it every day. Not just a civil infraction, the law, the federal law, constitutional law. The Constitution has a supremacy clause. No state can pass any law, ordinance, anything that violates the United States Constitution. So why aren't we utilizing Title 18 against law enforcement officers? Well, I'll tell you why. The police union and the dirty court system. It's nearly impossible to convict even an ex-officer of federal crimes. So abolishing qualified immunity is just shooting yourself in the foot. Fix qualified immunity so it isn't a license to brutalize. Right? If you're going to have an opinion, a debate, a public discussion, a movement about things, it behooves you to understand them first. I don't know how many people have called me a Marxist in the last year. None of them have read Karl Marx. I am not a socialist. If I had to pick a system of government that I have seen work the most successfully and have the highest level of kindness operating within it, I would be a communist. Not a socialist. Sooner or later, people are going to figure out that it's not the type of system that you're using that's the problem. Because every system from the feudal land barons right on through to today has suffered from the same issue. Ignorance being exploited by people with power. If we're going to hold our congressmen, our senators, our generals accountable for their misdeeds, the first thing we're going to have to do is put a leash on their dogs. Our government openly declared war on us. Openly. On the nightly news. Openly declared war on anybody suffering mental health issues. Or anybody that might suffer mental health issues, because plenty of people use drugs and don't suffer any mental health issues from them or any ill effects. In fact, most of society is on drugs. The government openly declared war on us, and they're using a standing army to wage that war. Thomas Paine is screaming in his grave. Thomas Jefferson's like, it worked. They bought it. Lock, stock, and flowery fucking words. So, again, letting the media, letting the government, letting the system control what the conversation is just going to lead the conversation around in more circles. So what's that mythical beast that the more you cut its heads off, the more heads come back? Whack-a-mole. Okay, think of any other analogies? Pissing up a rope. So anyway, police accountability starts with enforcing Title 18. Title 18, Section 241 is intimidation under the color of law. That's what that covers. When a police officer tries to intimidate you under the color of law into stopping your constitutionally protected activity. Okay? If you're from Michigan, you know goddamn well that a cop asks you for ID and you don't give it to him, there's a real good chance you're going to jail. You're at least going to sit in the back of a fucking cop car while they figure out every trick in the book they can to ID you. And they're going to threaten you. They're going to threaten to put you in jail. They're going to threaten to do all kinds of shit. Hang you with all kinds of charges. They're going to bring up obstruction. They're going to bring up governmental duties and a bunch of other official sounding fucking words. All of those tactics that they use are intimidation tactics. The limiting or removal of your constitutional right through a threat of violence. Okay? Being arrested is violent. Being put in jail is violent. Having another human being control your freedom and movements is violent. And if you don't believe me, challenge their authority to do so. And the state will meet you with full force. Yeah, abolishing qualified immunity is not going to do anything to change the situation. And as usual, the thing that is making a difference is your name and badge number. Can you state the MCL for that? ORS 131.615 says I don't have to give you ID, officer. Miracles and good cops both disappeared shortly after the camera was invented. I wonder why. I know that now they have 800x super telescopic zooms that you can buy at Walmart. Ain't nobody seen no pictures of Bigfoot in about 30 years. So, qualified immunity is a step in the wrong direction. It's another shill game. The P's not underneath that. In fact, the P's not underneath any of them until you pick one. Get your camera out. Hold the cops accountable.